Hello.
Do the pledge. Go ahead.
Okay. Everybody, welcome to the Town of Tustin Planning Board for March 2026. And ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so the board has received the minutes from February. And I believe,
I will make a motion that we accept those minutes.
Okay, can I get a second on that?
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so all in favor of accepting the minutes as read?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Take care of that. All right, and we're gonna jump right into old business, which is the Yeshivas Novominsk at 189 Blind Pond Road in Narrowsburg, New York, in regards to a special use permit. And I'm gonna give the meeting over to Peter Manning, our planning specialist. And hopefully he can drive the boat for us a little bit.
Hi there, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Excellent. So yeah, just a quick background. I've worked with the town over the years on a number of land use planning and zoning matters. And in this case, I'll be assisting the planning board with the review of this project. And thus far, I have reviewed the submitted long FEAF. Of course, that's the full environmental assessment form. And I have numerous comments on it. And I submitted those to the chairman and some of the others, the engineers, and it's also available to the applicant. There are numerous clarifications that need to be made on the form. It's really one of the earliest starting points to continue the review. And I can go through those points, but you know, that might be sort of exhaustive. What I also do in the memo is I explain what's known as a complete application. And that's a very important point in the review process. And I'll explain it a little bit. The town itself has a procedure to determine completeness in terms of the application meeting the requirements of your zoning regulations and any other applicable regulations. Specifically, we're talking about Article 8, and that's, of course, a special use permit and site plan review chapter or section. And in that section, there are a number of standards and procedures that need to be met. So the planning board's obligations have to do with reviewing a project according to certain standards. However, in order to do that, they need to have all the proper information. So another section, specifically that chapter 308.3 procedure, outlines the submission requirements that need to be part of a site plan application. So that's a quick overview of sort of part one of completeness. The second part of completeness has to do with the planning board, who will be most likely lead agency shortly here. The planning board's obligations to look at the project to determine if there are any elements of it that may have potential adverse impacts on the environment. And that's where we return back to this long or full environmental assessment form and the memo that I wrote, because importantly, and this is also in the memo, there's an excerpt from SEQR. That's, of course, the State Environmental Quality Review. And that review of the potential environmental impacts in the SEQR regulations. And part of the board's obligation is to determine completeness for SEQR purposes. So in order to do that, there are two choices that need to be made. Really, it's technically known as a determination. Number one is called the negative declaration, and that's when the board determines that there will be no potential adverse impacts. Number two, the second potential choice is what's known as a positive declaration. So in that case, the planning board identifies one or more potential significant adverse environmental impacts. And when they do that, then there needs to be additional information submitted. And that's technically known as an environmental impact statement. Now, an environmental impact statement isn't necessarily some giant 3-volume binders about, all kinds of things. Rather, it's narrowed down to zoom in on those potential environmental impacts that the board identified. So when those identified impacts are addressed by the applicant, and information, grading plans, stormwater plans, for instance, and other technical plans and specifications are submitted and accepted by the planning board as being complete, that's when the clock starts for completeness, right? So it'll be up to the board to make that determination, whether it be a negative declaration or a positive. But until that time, this part one needs to be completed by the applicant. It was completed, but there are several parts of it that need clarification. And that brings me back to the memo that I submitted. So that's a quick overview to get some of this underway.
Bill Brown is also right here. He's from Delaware Engineering. We might want to just ask Bill if he's done anything else.
Yeah, so if we can get Bill up.
I've asked him to unmute.
Okay.
There it is.
There it is.
Good evening, folks. Nothing much more to add beyond what Peter stated. We did review the documentation as well. It looks like, a lot of preliminary information is provided relative to components on the site plan. Some of our questions and concerns, largely related to the infrastructure that's proposed, the water, the sewer systems, the stormwater. All of those are based on the scale of the project, things that are going to need to be permitted by DOH and DEC, and adhere to their standards. So at this stage, there's not a lot of information, in terms of detail of what those systems are, and what permits, they're going to obtain. But those are items we know are going to need to be procured over the course of the project.
Brandon, before I think the other thing is just so that everybody's aware. If you remember the last time we met on this, which was 2 months ago, we was the last time we discussed this. Ted was here. He's here again tonight. I had raised the question that threshold question of, let's resolve whether or not they meet the definition of educational institution, and that question was resolved. They provided me the documentation that shows they are certified, or whatever the word is, registered, but it's a program that's governed and regulated by the New York State Board of Regents. So they are an educational program regulated by the state of New York. So it does fit that definition. So that threshold question was answered and documented.
Okay, so I guess at this point, moving forward, the board finds that the application is incomplete.
Well, I think that's the what you're hearing from your consultant.
So I think that we're gonna need a more, because it's a huge project, really. It's especially for us. And so I think what we need to do at this point is give this documentation over to Ted, and they need to work on this a little bit and get back to us.
Yeah, I think the thing to do would be share Peter's memo with Ted.
Right.
So he can then go through it, and he can absolutely, and Peter, jump in if you think, and for that matter, Bill, you as well, if you disagree. But I think, there's no reason why after Ted goes through that, he can't speak directly to Peter and Bill or both in order to make sure he clarifies and understands exactly what they're looking for and what they're recommending to the planning board, so he can actually respond to it. You know, this isn't an exercise to have him go fish for it. I think
And I do have a copy, if I can email it to you as well, but more Peter could with all, but that's.
yeah, I mean, we can give him the paper copy tonight, but we can
Yeah.
certainly should send it to him electronically
Yeah.
as well. It's not a problem. And it should be made part of the record,
Right.
of the planning board's record, so that it's in Amy's file and
Do
then
we have that, Amy?
open for public examination if
We'll
anybody
make sure
cares
that
to as
goes
well.
to Amy, too,
Right. mhm,
and then
exactly.
everybody has.
Yeah, well, I just got this
I
afternoon, so,
figured that.
okay. So at this point,
Yeah, unless Ted, is there anything else you want to throw in at this point? I know you're kind of in a vacuum. It's hard for you to do. I'm not looking to put you on a spot, so don't feel compelled.
And that's fine. You need to go to the microphone or?
yeah,
no,
right, well, yeah.
because we got more people, I think, watching this electronically tonight than we do in the room.
I guess maybe just my clarification too, is as far as completeness of this application, this is just as far as concerning the application for the zoning. Right,
Well,
to get the special exception approved.
Well, it's a special use permit, which is,
Right.
which is a requirement under our zoning law that you would need in order to make this use of the property.
Right,
And part of that process is a site plan review and approval, which is what the mapping's about, obviously, so that.
right,
But overlying all of it, or underlying, overlying, whatever you want to call it, the entire special use site plan is initially we got the seeker threshold that we have to address.
right. Okay. I mean, as far as mentioning things about like sewer, water, we understand those are issues that we'll have to do. The thing is, are we expected to do all of this extra preliminary engineering work for the zoning?
I think that's one of the
That's-
reasons why I suggest that you should converse directly with Peter and Bill to get a clear understanding of what they think is necessary at a minimum for the board to be able to analyze and make the secret determination. And obviously, your interest is not to do a whole pile of engineering at substantial cost when it might.
Come later down the line.
Right.
So
exactly.
that's why I think that's a question for you as professionals to hash out and come to a mutually acceptable understanding as to what Peter and Bill need in order to recommend and advise the planning board and what you can, reasonably hope to produce without having to basically design an entire, the final design of the project.
Exactly, right.
Yeah,
But
so
at some point you gotta get that because enough of it, because the secret review has to analyze some of these significant elements, which are the sewer, the water, and the dam. Those are all significant. So you're gonna have to do some substantive, presentation on that, I would suspect. Peter and
Or
Bill.
at least investigatory work,
Yeah, I mean,
Figuring out just
I-
what
I-
is
let's-
there and to
well,
have at least
and what, but
preliminary.
you gotta be able to lay out what you're proposing to do. I mean, we gotta understand how much, how much water you're gonna be drawing out of the ground, how much sewage is gonna be being discharged. Because we gotta analyze that in order to understand what level of permits and approval you're gonna need from DOH, from DEC. You're gonna need,
Sure.
obviously you need at least a speedies permit to deal with, I mean, from what I'm seeing at this point, to deal with the sewage, if not something more site specific. If it reaches even a higher threshold, but it certainly reaches that general speedies threshold and the water, I'm not even in a position to say, but you can obviously do the calculations and between Bill and Peter, you can come up with a conclusion as to what based on what you're proposing is what the potential water consumption is and that way they can have the data to
Right.
have the basis for an analysis, right?
I did do some, or at least, top end calculations, and that was included in the app.
Right.
yeah,
So
so
I guess
the,
we'll have to- Go
we're
ahead.
not at the point of the detailed information really at this point. So it's very early in the process. So again, just to review, there are kind of two sides to this. One is the seeker information, and that's all detailed in the memo. And the other one is what the regulations say that you need to submit as part of a site plan application. So for example, just to pick out one thing in the memo, the drain fields aren't indicated, right? So in order to have a complete site plan, a document, a drawing, the components listed in the regulations need to be at least on the plan. So then, once,
What's in our zoning law, not what's in the secret regulations.
Right.
so then, once those local regulations, zoning regulations, specifically site plan review and special use permit, once those components are met, you have that one side of completeness. The second side, again, it's very early because that part one of the full environmental assessment form needs all those clarifications. Then, once that's clarified, the board can importantly move to part two of the form, and that's where the environmental assessment takes place. Now, at the conclusion of part two, there will likely be some elements that are identified as needing more information. Then we begin to get into, well, what exactly kind of information do you need? And that's where a lot of the technical specifications and engineering information comes to the surface, but it's also narrowed down for everyone's convenience because that's what part two does. It says which one of these, cross that threshold where we need more information. So you need not get too technical. However, you do need to look at, and I'm here to help, of course, and others as well. You do need to look at those items that need to be on the site plan, from the simple things of, the north arrow and the scale all the way up to, again, we need to see where the drain fields are and so forth. So it's likely that a separate grading plan will be needed, for example. But it's kind of a balance, not having you go too technical, but meeting the standards in the law, the local zoning law. And then again, later, when we identify more information, that's where you really supply the details. And once all that is complete, then we can begin to move on in the process. And then, the statutory clocks start to run and so forth. But we're a little ways off from that at the moment.
Yeah, that was Peter. Thank you for that.
And I'll just give you this stuff. I will get this to you electronically, but just gonna check. Okay. Good evening.
I can have this copy.
Yes, and I'll get you one electronically, just.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So, do we need to make a motion to close the meeting, or do we need to tell them what we need to do? or-
Well, I think we've accomplished everything that you can accomplish tonight, and I think now Ted's gonna have to go and digest what Peter's laid out. And I think he's gonna have to engage with Peter and probably Bill to some extent in order to hammer out what he's gonna produce that's gonna get him to come back next month with what you're gonna need to move forward with the review. Sound fair, Peter, Bill?
Yeah, we're happy to look at it with you guys. We don't want to go all the way down the rabbit hole, but we just need to understand kind of what the impacts on the property are going to be, to be able to provide that information to the planning board.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I'll probably be in touch in a day or two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
And I just, he made it, we should acknowledge on the record
Yeah.
that the rabbi is present and he representing the applicant who's the organization that is the applicant.
Very much. I was standing by the main door for 15 minutes.
Up front, right, yeah.
That's Ted's fault. He didn't tell you where to go. Well, at least you made it. That's the important part.
We appreciate it.
All right, so, does anybody at the board have a comment on anything or anybody? Correspondence?
No, I think
Thought it was
we've
all
kind
right.
of had an outline of what needs to happen. It'll really be up to the applicant to decide the speed at which all of this material gets compiled. Yes, sir.
Yeah, are we allowed to make it?
No, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but there is no public comment. This is not a public hearing, it's a board meeting,
Okay.
so I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you.
If this goes forward, there will be a public hearing at some. point.
Right, there's a process for that, but we're not quite there yet.
Thank you.
And it might be a ways to go, so.
So I think we're at the point now where we are declaring the application incomplete. Is that
That is correct, yes.
Mhm.
So,
okay?
yeah, so basically, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna say that we find that the application is incomplete and significant information regarding water supply, wastewater treatment, stormwater management, wetlands, emergency access. It's, given the scale of the complexity of the proposed use, the board anticipates a coordinated seeker review and potential need for a full environmental assessment once a complete application is submitted. So I think you guys have your marching orders on that. And I think that's,
Do we need a motion to declare the application incomplete,
I
or
don't think
do we just, it's not
I think we've
considered as
established the
filed?
record. I mean, you can do it if you want. Mike.
No, I guess,
yeah,
I think it's pretty clear in the
Is
record.
it necessary or no?
now,
Okay,
then no necessary motions will be,
okay.
unnecessary motions will be.
Well, unless anybody has any further business, I think we can move to take a motion that we close.
We have to do our meeting reminder. for-
Yes.
All right, yeah, we do a meeting reminder, okay, and what is that date for April?
It's late next month, I do believe it is the 28th of that.
One, two, three, the 28th, am I correct?
Okay,
It'll be April 28th, so
April 28th.
at
Okay.
7:30 PM.
all right, so we did discuss previously, I would like to entertain a motion that we change our meeting time, starting in May for, 6:30 PM. And I'd like to get a motion on that, and then the board can vote on
I
that.
will make that motion that effective May.
Right, and we will address the date in May, because that's different as well, but let's get the motion first.
But yes, that the planning board meetings will take place at 6:30 PM
I will second that.
going forward.
Okay, and all in favor of changing the meeting time starting effective in May to 6:30 PM as opposed to 7:30 PM? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Okay, so now let's address the meeting date for May. Because we do have a conflict that our meeting date would be tax grievance day, so we cannot meet on that date. And I think we discussed the 27th, which is a Wednesday. And that would be at 6:30 PM. So that's gonna be our May meeting, but like I said, the April meeting is gonna stay at 7:30. It's just the May meeting is gonna start to change, where we're gonna go to 6:30 PM. And to align ourselves with with the town board meeting as well. Same
Zoning board and everything.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Sounds great.
The other bit of housekeeping is, of course, at a 2-week advance submission deadline.
right,
We're meeting on April 28th, then April 14th becomes the deadline for
submission.
any submissions, additional information, anything that needs to be reviewed in advance of that meeting.
Fantastic. Sounds good to
Thank
me.
you.
I think we are now ready to entertain the motion to adjourn.
Are you making that motion?
I will make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
Good night.
All right, good evening, folks.
Thank you.